Good morning, everybody. We're live from New York, and we're going to be starting in just a few minutes. We're getting lots of people signing on, so just hold on for a few minutes, and we'll get started very, very shortly. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. We are here today to discuss the trends that are driving our opportunity as a result of COVID-19. Just to tell you, my name is Dan Hodges. I'm CEO of a company called Consumers in Motion. We work with executives throughout the world to help understand the trends and how it will sort of impact business. We're happy that you are here, and we'll get started. So today is sort of a P day, and so we're looking at the trends in terms of, as we see it from the marketplace, protection, personalization, the ability to new products and services joining, policy that's driving a lot of where we are today, procedures, how to scale, planning, what the world looks like, prevention, how to mitigate future pandemics, a pandemic warning system, very much like the Amber Alert in the United States, people, and then potential. So in the past, last week, we discussed best practices from the China marketplace, and we spoke with Kevin Pang and Catherine and Sharon. In the past, we've had reports from Malu in Brazil, Eric in Mexico City, Riyadh in Johannesburg, and today we're focusing on Gonzalo, who's a colleague of mine from Nokia. I asked Gonzalo to take a look at the marketplace in Spain and to file a report, because one of the unique attributes we have with the retail store tours is we have real-time reporting and real-time insights, the like of which I haven't seen in the marketplace, at least yet. So the best person to explain what's going on in Madrid is Gonzalo. So we'll let Gonzalo speak for himself.
Hi, this is Gonzalo Guzman reporting from Madrid. The situation in Spain is quite tough because we are facing the 7th week of national lockdown, and that means more than 40 days with the population staying at home. The Spanish government adopted one of the most restrictive lockdowns in Europe, and people here are only allowed to go out for working in certain restricted industries and for buying essential goods. On the streets, the panorama is bleak, as all shopping centers, retail stores, and non-essential businesses are closed. Only pharmacies, supermarkets, and grocery stores are open during limited hours and have implemented all security measures proposed by the government in order to avoid infections. For example, people capacity controls inside the stores, frequent disinfections. Wearing face masks and gloves is not mandatory, but recommended, and also the 2-meter security between people. Fortunately, the daily number of deaths and infected by the virus is descending progressively, and from tomorrow, children will be allowed to go out with an adult. The next stage of the lockdown is expected to arrive in May 10th, when we hope that some retail businesses can restart their activities. Restaurants, bars, theaters, and hotels will probably be the last industry to return to normal. A new normal that will never be the same.
So we thought it helpful for Gonzalo to provide some video, because you can see on one end, last week we were in China speaking with Kevin, who is the Secretary General of the CCFA, and Catherine, who's a supermarket executive, and Sharon, who is a founder of Chakra, but also our lead in China. What we saw in China was the marketplace is coming back. Kevin reported, for those of you who weren't here, that 95% of supermarkets and hypermarkets are open, that basically retail is open to around 85%, and basically sales are between 30 and 40% of normal. Those who were digital brands did extremely well in China. We go to Spain and also Italy, which is really one of the hardest hits, and we see a market that is just coming back to life. I spoke with our colleague in Narvik, Norway last week, and he said that basically Narvik is 130 miles north of the Arctic Circle. So one of the things that we're trying to convey through these video broadcasts is that this is truly global. And sometimes we know that, but when you actually see it, it registers even more emphatically. But in Narvik, Norway, the children were going back to school on Friday, and retail is opening. And we'll get into what that means in Norway in just a bit. So we had the great fortune of being featured in Forbes, this program, this past weekend. And a person by the name of Dan Hodges, of course, that's me, I said that we are optimistic about the infrastructure in the US, estimating that because of these factors and prior positive economic conditions, the US will see never before growth in the third quarter and going into fourth quarter. We believe that because the country is uniquely wired, that 43 million people were already working from home, and that the government has protected income and businesses, that this will be the case. So we're going to look at the first P, which is protection. In one of the frames that Gonzalo had, he basically had, protection. In this case, what is the future of dining? Well, it looks very much like a plexiglass cubicle. But again, these are all short-term measures. When we look at protection, it's protection when you're picking up your food, and this is a it's a bread and sort of snack place in Milan, so you can see that it's universal. Protection is going to work wearing a mask, and this is the about a week ago in going into work in Beijing. Protection is about protecting yourself, and this is in Poland a couple of weeks ago, and the young lady has gloves, no face mask, but a protective shield. And we're seeing some of this in the US right now. Protection means distancing yourself and keeping that safe social distance, which we'll see over and over again throughout this presentation. The next trend is personalization. And if you can't read because you're on an iPhone, the mask says, if you're reading this, you're too close. So I included the two trends here because in a very, very short period of time, the creative genius of the world has been unleashed. And so there's a company called Esty, and they basically have around 50,000 people that are making masks. And the masks are all types and shapes and sizes, from funny masks to beautiful masks. There are the business masks, for all of you businessmen or women out there, the serious business mask where you can put your microphone. There's the, what's your mood today mask, so happy face, mustache. So people are having fun with this. Of course, no trend would be validated unless we had the pet masks. So again, there's just an explosion of creativity and investment right now. For people who like Burberry, there's the Burberry mask. Hermes is working on masks right now. So again, there's a huge opportunity. It could be the next billionaire is the mask king or queen. There's also the use of technology. And again, this is nothing new, CRM, personalization. But imagine having that young lady help you at Brooks Brothers, pick out your suit, do your measurements, all remotely. This is a trend in China. It's called shops. So SHOP, SHOPS. And basically for those of you who are in the United States, think of this as QVC. So what happens is shops goes to boutiques and they live stream to China. And in this case, there are 10,000 people who are tuned in to look at that young lady explain how well that garment's made. Again, this is real. So imagine for retailers that that every retailer, Nordstrom, Lord & Taylor, Saks, that you are a broadcast channel. That is the future of retail in some degree. There's also the need for touch, and the need for communication hasn't been greater. Here we are, Tuesday at 9:05 with groups, about 100 people from around the world, discussing and sharing this with each other. There's also the personalization. Many of you have been on phone calls with babies and dogs, and there's a certain charm to that. And there's also the vast potential for medical innovation, which we'll cover later. There's also the lessons from China were rather definitive in that if you were not a fully digital optimized for mobile brand, you suffered. And there's a huge amount of investment right now for those who are behind to catch up. There's also not getting too far too far ahead, but there are, in the United States market, there are 100 million people that are using AR. So basically, AR shopping is nascent, but growing quickly. And that's something, if you're fully digitized, you really need to be looking at this relatively quickly. Microsoft is a really good partner with HoloLens. This is a 2-year-old trend in Asia. So there is the personalization of beauty with telebeauty. So you can actually get customized makeovers and beauty experiences via AR. So in some cases VR. So these are trends, these are real. This is going on in Asia. So if you're not doing this, you should be looking into it. The next area that we talk about is policy. And this is all part of the P's. We're on P number 4. And basically it's following the rules. This is in Edinburgh, Scotland. And this is last week. And this is a scene that repeats itself around the world, but people are waiting for groceries. As far as policy goes, in the US, we have 30 days to slow the spread, but there are versions of this throughout the world. In Norway, this is a policy handbook that was issued last week. And for those of you who can't read this, it covers things to how to do on the way to the office. How do I enter the office? What do I do in the office? How do I exercise in the office? What do I do in public areas? What do I do on a business visit? How do I disinfect my phone? How do I change my air conditioner? How do I dispose of masks? How do I choose a mask or wear a mask in a public place? So anyway, so there's a lot going on, and it's an amazing amount of work that's gone in imagine, just 45 days. Our favorite example was also featured in the Forbes article, and we love this this brochure that Rodney McMillan, who is the CEO of and chairman of Kroger, he is also, like we, very optimistic on a pretty robust bounce back. So for those of you who are retailers who have not set up your guidelines and your procedures, this is a really good template. And so basically it's been updated as of last week, but it's sharing what we've learned, a blueprint for business in COVID-19. So Rodney and his group talk about flattening the curve in retail stores, and with stores with almost 3,000 retail stores, they're doing a lot. But it doesn't stop there. They've also set up pandemic testing centers in 11 cities around the world in the United States. They've also training their people on healthy habits, and because it starts with the employee, and there's an enormous amount of employee training that's going on in grocery, but also with the 42 million people that represent the retail market in the United States, there's a tremendous amount of work. There are literally hundreds of millions of people that are working as we speak to get America and the world back online. There's also educating customers and visitors. I've been shopping, you've been shopping, and pretty much they're enforcing keeping your 6 feet in the United States or 2 meters, and following the rules. There is in China there has been crowd control. So, for example, if you go to Starbucks, you need to make an appointment, and you need to show up around the time that the space will be open. So we're seeing that some of the lessons from China that we spoke about are already here. There is an encouragement of physical distancing, as you can see on the floor. We see that in New Jersey and New York. There's about 3 weeks ago, many of the major companies put in the plexiglass face shield separator to help mitigate the exchange. And then there's the whole new regimen in terms of shopping centers, cleaning procedures. And so you can see, if you haven't seen or haven't experienced, that there is a serious ramp up that is going on in the world economy as we get back to the new normal. There's also innovations, like for those who are senior citizens and endangered medically, that they have certain hours that they've adjusted their shopping to. So again, what a wonderful piece of leadership from Walmart, from Costco, and here's the example from Kroger. There's also one of our other P's is changing your planning and changing your modality. So very, very quickly, many companies have adjusted to curbside in the case of restaurants. In the case of Kroger, they've actually added an entire brand new pickup section, which is evidenced in this photo here. There's also spacing. For those in the restaurant industry on the call, or those in the office space, these are spaces from China, and they're generally keeping around 6 feet, where they're trying to separate people as best they can. And this is a piece from Gensler Architecture, and it's actually planning the workplace. And I'll read this for those of you who are font challenged. So it's really de-densifying the workplace, because we really do want to get back to work. Planning for the near now, because it's temporary. Keeping your distance. And then also rethinking the dynamic of unassigned seating. I mean, the implications for real estate could be those who thought that they were having sort of a crunch could actually be surprised, and that the density will actually help in some cases for making up for maybe the lack of demand of space. There's, as we saw in Kroger, it's ramping up your cleaning protocols, upgrading your filtration systems, uniformly enforcing and practicing good hygiene. We're seeing this for the 3rd time. Learning for healthcare, empowering your people, and many of the innovations from Kroger and Walmart have come from the associates. And then be open to new ways of working. When we look at the 7 habits of highly successful retailers, the one thing that we show, number 7, is the ability to change. And what you're seeing in these brief number of slides here is the amount of change. Imagine the world has changed, and we're at day 45. This is nothing new. Telehealth and those of us who are in the mobile industry, we had glucose blood sugar technology in 2007. So there's not so much that there is the innovation, but it's more of the integration of healthcare. And we'll get into that very shortly when it comes to shopping centers. But again, this is nothing new. This is technology that's been out in the marketplace, but has not been widely deployed. The next area is preventive. We talk about responsible retail. Well, here's an example of responsible retail, and this is China. And we don't see this here, but we will. Here meaning the United States. So you are not allowed in the store unless you are properly queued in to manage the store density, which we see here in the United States. In Brazil and in Italy and in Spain and many parts of Europe, they're doing temperature checking. So if you're above an acceptable level, you're asked to come back when you are sort of more normal. We're actually going to be seeing the medical mall, and we predict that probably 25% of all shopping center space will have primary and special care. Special care being for certain health conditions. There will be health and wellness. There will be fitness and mindfulness and medical testing. We're not predicting this. We're just pointing this out because around 20% of the Westfield shopping center in Beverly Hills is exactly this. This is a real UCLA center. There's doctor's visits, there's MRIs, there's fitness, there's yoga. So look to retail to reinvent itself, and 25% of shopping space could very well be medical. So you go to the mall to shop, to get your tests, to get treatment, and so forth. We're also seeing enormous steps forwards in biometrics, the use of geodata and sensors. So expect a revolution in biometrics, and certainly one of the areas to be looking at from an investment point of view. There is a race for vaccine development. There's a group in England called Oxford, and they are testing the first human trials. They have 6,000 people that will be tested. So they have successfully tested this vaccine produced by the Oxford group in England in rhesus monkeys. And rhesus monkeys, for those of you who are new to the vaccine area, are the closest animal prototype to the United States. And in the initial trials, the rhesus monkeys that have been heavily exposed to COVID-19 have not, those that have been vaccinated have not gotten it. So it's, there's promising developments. There's also disease and pandemic modeling that is going on a global basis, 24/7 in the cloud. So how does this impact retail? Well, it's obvious. The more modeling, the more prediction that we have on this impact will actually help the safety of shopping. There's also graphene is being looked at. Graphene is the wonder material that was invented in 2012 as basically graphene resistant fibers. So it not conductive of the coronavirus. There's also discussion about a pandemic warning system. Those who are in the United States are familiar with an Amber Alert. So consider that, when cases are in the pandemic warning system, that will be a flag to sort of take corrective real-time measures. It's one of the great innovations that will come out of this. There's also, in regard to people, there are new roles. There'll be the chief pandemic officer that will be in charge of procedures. There'll be the chief supply chain officer, or CSO. They exist, but not in such a focused area. One of the Achilles heels across the world was a crunch on the supply chain, which has pretty much been mitigated, but certainly that's it. There'll also be your chief medical officer. So, and the chief medical officer will be involved with technology, employee training, compliance. And so you can see, a sort of a restructuring and a rethinking of how we, sort of go to market and how do we succeed in this world. Last slide is basically about potential. There is vast potential. There is an army of people that are working from logistics to supply chain to vaccines, and never before has there been such an effort in a positive way to achieve a positive outcome. So those are some of the trends we're seeing, and obviously you can look at those trends and as everything, take everything with a grain of salt. But our unique perspective is that we're in the marketplace, and this is what we're seeing. So it's not that we're just sharing what we're seeing. So anyway, that concludes our briefing today. If you have any questions, we have a couple minutes for questions, but if not, we can always resume next week. Again, the topics and for today's live event came from you. And so if you have some suggestions or things that you would like to ask for next week, please let us know. We are measuring success when we don't do this program anymore, when there's no need for it. However, we do think that because this is such an unusual inflection point that affects the world, that affects so much in real time, that we could potentially be doing this for a while. So it looks like there are no questions. So if there are no questions, we will end today's broadcast. As usual, if you'd like a copy of this, please let us know. Recording and slides will be available to you. Again, thank you very much and hope you have a great day.